Thank you all for coming today or for watching this afterwards. I am Eleanor Brassfield. I'm the Community Education Coordinator here at Little Priest Tribal College. And I'm working with these folks at the Angel to Cora Museum to share this, share some information about some HoChunk women from the past who have made some really great contributions to our society.
Thanks, Eleanor. I'm Ben. I work here at the Angel to Cora Museum with Jordan. And the museum's located up at Little Priest Tribal College, of course, so we work closely with the college, and I work here and look after the stuff here at the museum.
And my name is Jordan Blackfish. I am the assistant to Sunshine Thomas Bear, and I also work here at the museum. So, and I was happy to help Eleanor and work with Ben on this presentation.
So I thought it would be good to start off with one of the earliest recorded women in history, in US history. Of course, the tribe has been in America for thousands of years, but because of assimilation, boarding schools, and removals, a lot of the history that we know about important HoChunk women and important HoChunk figures in general has kind of been shook up a bit. But one of the earliest women we're aware of who existed in history, in HoChunk history, is Hampagawinga, also known as Coming of the Day or Glory of the Morning. And Hampagawinga was a very important HoChunk woman, especially if you're watching now or listening later, if you are a Dakota, because Hampagawinga married a French fur trader whose name was either Joseph or Sabrevor de Carey. And that last name, de Carey, became Dakota with their children. That name eventually evolved into the Dakota family name. And Hampagawinga, she was the daughter of a chief, and either her brothers weren't cut out to be chiefs or she didn't have any brothers. And she actually ended up being a leader in the tribe. And as someone married to a French person, a French fur trader, she probably would have been something like a diplomat. And she likely made important decisions, political decisions that affected the whole tribe. And she lived in a very beautiful place in Wisconsin most of her life called Doty Island, which is near Lake Winnebago. And I encourage you, if you're driving through Wisconsin or if you live in Wisconsin, to go and check out Doty Island and just think about what life would have been like back then. You'll notice there's a question mark near the end date of Hampagawinga's life. And that's because there's sources kind of vary when she passed away, but most people seem to think that she lived quite a long time. So that's our first featured HoChunk woman for this Women's History Month presentation.
Susan LaFleche is actually not HoChunk. There are two women in this presentation who are not HoChunk, but have contributed, are from local tribes in this region where the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska sits. And Susan LaFleche is one of them. So she's from Omaha Nation, which is just south of where Winnebago is here in Nebraska. And she was an enrolled member of the Omaha tribe, and she lived during the same time period as Angel to Cora, who we'll be talking about a little bit later. But her path was much different than Angel to Cora's. As a child, Susan witnessed the death of a Native woman after a white doctor refused to treat her, which motivated her future medical career. She's widely recognized as the first Native woman to ever receive a medical degree. She graduated as valedictorian and a year ahead of schedule with her medical degree. And with her credentials, she was able to return to the Omaha reservation and travel in the region. So she served not only Omaha tribal members, but also Winnebago tribal members in this region that's like 400 miles square. So it's quite a large region that she served. She went on to become a public health advocate, arguing for sobriety and working to address the problems of sanitation and tuberculosis among the Omaha. During her time as a doctor, she, like I said, she definitely was in this area, and she was definitely treating HoChunks in Winnebago. Near the end of her life, she helped create the first hospital in Omaha land before she passed away in 1915. So she's very important to the Omaha tribe, but because of how close geographically the Omaha tribe and the Winnebago tribe are, she's also very important for the Winnebago tribe.
And our next woman, talking about the medical profession, is Addie Stevens Bouchier. And we're not quite sure when Bouchier was born. Basically, during this time, census records were very kind of sparse, especially with Native Americans. But Bouchier was born during the boarding school era, like a lot of these women on this list. And as a child, she was taken to the Hampton boarding school, very, very far away, out east, so very far away from the reservation here, where she studied for about 4 years. And after her time at Hampton, she decided to complete nursing school. And she was one of the very first HoChunk women to become a nurse. Apparently she was very well known during her time, and the governor of Nebraska eventually appointed her to be the maternal and infant welfare nurse for all Indian reservations in the state of Nebraska. So she was very well known at a state level, even by the governor. And we do know that she passed away in 1937, but undoubtedly she probably cared for many, many Native Americans during her time, most likely in and outside of the tribe.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna talk about Emma Big Bear. I love talking about Emma Big Bear here when anyone comes to visit the museum. She's a very unique woman in her time. I'll read a little bit off the slideshow, and then I had a few other little things I was going to add. But Emma Big Bear, who came from a long line of Decorah family chiefs of the Winnebago Nation, she made her home mostly in the McGregor-Marquis, Iowa area, where she traded in Iowa and across the Great River on the island of Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. To make a living, Emma Big Bear sold her handmade woven baskets, and those that she traded with were also from the Winnebago tribe, but then she also traded with locals around her area as well. That was she was in. And she lived very close to the effigy mounds. So I'm going to go off a little bit from the slideshow, but I had read that she actually lived 3 miles away from the effigy mounds in the National Monument. And she was told as a young girl to always stay near them. And that was one of her big things. She was also one of the last known HoChunk women to live off the land traditionally still during her lifetime. And it wasn't actually until she was older, like much older, that she lived in a home. And even then she still lived close to where the mounds were. There's articles actually that were put out from the people that lived around there. She was known as a legend, and a lot of the kids would see her along the river growing up. And a lot of her baskets are still like passed down through some of the families that she had given her baskets to. Um, the thing that I love about her too is that when she would make her baskets, she also, when she would trade them or get money for them, the money that she got, she also gave to others in need. So it was like a way for her to make a living during that time, but it also was a way for her to share that. And I always think that's so unique and special about her. She was also born 1869 is what they have down around that time, and she passed away in 1968. So to me, like, she's seen a lot during that time period. A lot was already going on anyway, so she lived in a really like tough time and seeing so many changes within that time. And so to still live like traditionally, I thought that was really unique and cool to read about her. When she actually moved to Marquette, Iowa, she was 47 years old, and she was pregnant with her child, and her husband Henry and is who she moved there with, and they lived along the river together. So she had a lot of knowledge of plants and animals and the landscape, and I think that was all that I was going to add on there. Does anybody have any questions? If not, we can move on.
Okay, so Ange de Cora, Hinuk Mahiwi Karanaka, very important lady to the museum. Of course, she's our namesake here, where Jordan and I work, the Angel de Cora Museum. And she was born in 1871, just a few years after the tribe moved to here in Nebraska. And she was the daughter of David Tall de Cora and Frances Lemire. And Frances she was a Metis woman, so she had Native and French ancestry. And really, Angel, when she was growing up, she was really taught and educated by her grandfather, Chief Little de Cora. He was kind of like a father figure for her. And when she was little, she was taken to a boarding school, again, going to the Hampton Indian School, where she wouldn't be able to return home here in Nebraska for several years. So going to these boarding schools is just a really, really tough thing that you really have to admire these women for enduring and dealing with the trauma of being separated from home. After she completed her time at Hampton, she really realized that she was she kind of had a skill to be an artist. And she went to college and kept refining her artistic skills. And eventually what she did was she worked at the Carlisle boarding school, the Carlisle Indian School, where she helped to establish the first Native American art class. And you might ask, why would Angel work at a boarding school, right? What Angel wanted to do, and what a lot of these first wave of Native people going to boarding schools wanted to do, was to kind of flip boarding schools from assimilating Native culture to supporting Native culture. So Angel was the art teacher, and she taught Native kids. So she was really trying to support their Native art traditions from tribes in Alaska and the Southwest and other HoChunk kids. So she worked with a lot of tribes to support their artwork and encourage kids to make artwork in the ways they had been taught. She was also an activist too. And you have to remember, this is a time before even most white women had the right to vote, let alone Native women who weren't even technically recognized as citizens of the country yet. Unfortunately, she died in 1919 during the Spanish flu epidemic, only in her 40s, really. So pretty young in life, but we decided to name the museum after her for all the things that she had done.
Zakala Shah is another non-HoChunk who made our list. She's the second and last. She's actually Dakota. Zakala Shah means redbird or cardinal in Dakota, and she's also, her like English name was Gertrude Simmons Bonin. She was a Yankton, Dakota Sioux woman who lived at the same time as Angel Cora and some of the other women we've discussed today. Like Angel Cora, she was an artist, an educator, a writer, and an early Native rights activist. So while Angel Cora was a painter, Zakala Shah was a musician. She was a violinist and a composer, and she actually composed the first opera that was written by a Native American woman and performed, not super widely, but performed on the stage. And she was also known for composing and playing traditional songs on her violin. So she is, I believe she's also written some books. There are books both about her and that she wrote herself. So if you are curious, you can find them even on Amazon or from a library. So very cool lady. Oh, I guess this is still me. Right. And then Lillian St. Cyr is also sort of lived in the same time frame as Redbird and as Angel Cora. She was an actress as well as an activist. All of these women sort of operated in the same circles. I mean, not all of the women we're talking about today, but certainly Lillian St. Cyr and Zakala Shah and Angel Cora. And so Lillian St. Cyr lived from 1884 to 1974, and she performed in dozens of films as one of the first Native American actresses on the big screen or on the silver screen or whatever you want to call it. She was born in Winnebago in 1884 to Julia Cora and Mitchell St. Cyr. And as a young girl, she was also taken and studied at the Carlisle Indian School and graduated from there in 1902. Her acting career began in the theater, eventually transitioning to acting in full-length silent films and shorts. As an actor, she performed her own stunts and often made her own costumes. By the mid-1920s, her acting career winded down and she took up activism, pushing for the creation of a National Indian Day. She passed away in 1974 and is buried here in Winnebago at the St. Augustine Cemetery. And she's another person that you can find a lot of information out there about her as well. Way more than we can put into one slide or one presentation.
So Angela Little Bieber, she was born in 1903, and she was the daughter of Charles English Jr. and Louisa English. And Angela was sister to Abraham Little Bieber, who died during World War II in the Army Air Corps. And Abraham, he was sent to the Pacific, and if I recall correctly, he was kind of like a technician working on planes. And I'm not sure if it was in combat, but I think he became sick, if I'm remembering correctly, like a lot of people did during this war when they were sent to new environments that they hadn't grown up in, and he died. And of course, this really affected his family. And for Angela, losing her brother really motivated her to become a member of the Winnebago Women's Auxiliary for the Winnebago Veterans Society. So kind of supporting the Winnebago Veterans Society was her drive. And she's also known for serving as the executive director for the Winnebago Housing Authority, and she was involved in a number of public welfare projects to help the tribe. Specifically, she was big in helping to plan and construct the Rainbow Housing Unit, which created 30 duplexes for family in need of housing. And I was told, if I remember correctly, that many of the brick buildings near Little Priest Tribal College, sort of at the bottom of the hill, were made as part of that project. So a lot of the brick buildings that you see close to the college and near the, I guess, just south of the college were made as part of her efforts. And she was also active in St. Augustine's Art Society and the St. Kateri Circle. And quite late in life, in 1972, she was advocating for better aid to the elderly poor, not just in this tribe, but all peoples in America, all those who were old and could no longer look after themselves financially. And she passed away in 1993 at the age of 90.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Wanda K Solner. She was born 1928 and passed away 1963. So she was pretty young. She kind of lived in the same time as like Lillian St. Cyr. Wanda was a member of the Winnebago tribe and the daughter of Patrick Kelsey and Helen Hardin. Wanda served as a nurse within the U.S. Naval Reserve during the Korean War, reaching the rank of lieutenant junior grade. She would continue to work as a nurse for the remainder of her life. The Korean War was around the 1950s, 53 ended, and she passed away in 1963. So it was really not too long, when I was looking at it. I know Ben might have a little bit more information about Wanda when we went to the classroom. I know he said a few more things. I didn't know if you want to add anything, Ben, or you wanted to say anything else, but.
Sure. And one of the things I really looked for Wanda's life, and I could not find for the life of me why she passed away so young. And we're looking at, mid 30s, looking at these dates. So I could not for the life of me find it, but her picture in this one is actually when she won. There was, Indian princess contest. So that's where her picture comes from. She had been competing with people who were of Scandinavian descent. So they had like the Scandinavian American competing against the Italian American, and apparently she won for the Native American. But she died rather young, and one of her, I believe it was her granddaughter, provided this photo.
Thanks, Ben.
So Genevieve M Johnson was born in 1925. And her HoChunk name is, I believe it's Ahucho. I might be pronouncing that wrong. But she was stationed at the Naval Supply Depot in Philadelphia during the at the tail end of the World War II. And after her service, she used the GI Bill to advance her education. And she later opened up her own business here in Winnebago. In 2009, she and two other female Native veterans were honored by the state governor of Nebraska for her service. And she passed away in 2011. I I don't know very much about her beyond what's on this slide. So I would love to learn more if anybody wants to share anything.
I do know that specifically she opened a beauty parlor, I think, in Winnebago with her using her education. Yeah, that's the one little tidbit I knew about her.
More than I did. Thanks, Ben.
And of course, Jackie Stevens. And Jordan and I were actually here last night honoring Jackie. Jackie recently passed away just last year during the COVID-19 pandemic. And Jackie she grew up here, and her first form of art form was applique. So she learned that growing up. And eventually, after going to college, she kind of found her true passion, which was pottery. Jordan, would you like to share a little bit more about Jackie?
Oh, sorry, I was reading the chats too. Yeah, I do want to share more. So Emmy, Scott, and Aaron White Beaver actually came to the museum a few weeks ago to talk to us about Jackie and the things that she did. She grew up in Winnebago as a young girl and learned how to do pottery with the clay by the river. And I'm not sure exactly as to like how much she did, but when she went to Santa Fe, she had a mentor that taught her how to create pottery with like the Hopi traditional way. But what I love about Jackie's pottery is if you look at it and you see it, and please look her up after this, one of the pots that we have here on display, she incorporated weaving into it. A lot of I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that HoChunks have a lot of things with weaving and basketry, just like Emma. So I thought that was really unique and really cool that she added that to her pottery. And they're so different. And I wish that we had her quote on here. I wonder if I seen that Emmy was on here, if she could read her quote. She has some really cool quotes. She has a daughter. Her name was Callie. And yesterday we were able to actually do an unveiling of her pottery. Her family put together a GoFundMe account after she had passed away from COVID in December. Sadly, they were able to get on and get a piece of her pottery work. And they wanted to donate it to the museum and kind of shed light more on her life, because before I had talked to them, I actually never heard of Jackie. So upon hearing about her, she's done a lot. And after talking to her daughter, she actually went as far as to showcase her work in Japan and Santa Fe and the Joslin Museum and the Smithsonian Museum. Some of her pottery is also there as well. And so it's like a huge like honor and privilege that we were able to have some of her artwork here. And if you guys want to come up anytime, we have for 2 months, we actually have some of her pottery work that her sister also donated to the museum for 2 months. So you can come and see those. And I was gonna say something else, but kind of got tongue tied. But yeah, so it was really, really cool to learn about her, because I also like to do artwork, and I know there's a lot of children in the community that also like to do artwork. And one of the big things that Aaron White Beaver had talked about is having that artwork here for our youth to come and see and be inspired and know that there's also things that there's other ways to do things like, you know, like we have different programs and different things to get into, like as far as a student, you know, you could be a nurse, a doctor, but there's other avenues and art is one of them. And she made her life, you know, off of her pottery work, and it's very inspiring. So that is something that I'm glad that we're going to have at the museum to showcase and be able to have people come up from the community and check it out and learn more about her.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if I said anything wrong, Emmy, please correct me.
Emmy, did you want to share one of those quotes? If you don't want to, there's no pressure.
Yeah, sure. I can read the one that is on display there. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
sounds
okay.
great.
She said, Jackie said, each pot has its own life, personality, character, and form, and that is what set me free. Pottery is like people, and each one is different and not perfect. Thanks.
Thanks, Emmy. Yeah, I really love
Thank
that
you, Emmy.
quote because and like Emmy said, yesterday Emmy was able to kind of get up and talk more, and she has things to share as well. And I liked how you talked about that, and how you kind of went more into depth about talking about the different sizes and the different things about pottery that make you different, unique, and you might have a different personality or a character, and but then we're not all perfect, and that there's imperfections in all of us. And those are things that, see, like just even talking about her, like just talking about that, like that's very inspiring and things that you can really live by in your day-to-day life. So definitely come up here and check that out.
Thanks, Jordan, and thanks, Ben. And thank you all for coming and listening to this presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can ask them now, or you can ask them in the chat, or you can email either me and community education or the folks at the museum. If you have any recommendations for women who we should add, for these presentations, we've basically committed to showcasing HoChunk women from history. So we're not talking about anyone still living today, but if you have an ancestor who you would like to see highlighted, we would love to learn more about different HoChunk women from history.